if you're going to pay everybody what their commercial rate is for an artistic project, it adds up really quickly.
It does.
That kind of brings me to the cheap trick of the week, which is be friends with very talented people.
We successfully created a zero-budget short film in 28 days, but today we're going to discuss how much does a zero-budget film actually cost?
And is it true that you can only pick two between good, fast, and cheap?
And if so, what did we end up with? Welcome to Indie Film Podcast. I'm Victoria.
And I am Chuck. Let's break down our short film that we just finished as of a few days ago. It was a musical. We ended up paying $500 out the door to get the film made. But we leaned a lot on our talented friends to get it done. And so let's talk about the actual costs versus the real costs so that all of you out there can kind of have an idea what it is to make a quote-unquote zero-budget film that we shot over 2 days.
Perfect.
Do you want to start us off, Victoria, with the breakdown of what we actually spent money on?
Yeah, since so far it's sure sounding like this was fast and cheap, which does make you wonder about the quality of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, you could be the judge of that.
Yes.
So sign up for our newsletter. We'll eventually send out a private screener link to all our newsletter subscribers so you can see it, judge for yourself. But let's talk about the budget.
Yes. Okay, so the actual expenditures that we had were, we had the costumes.
Yes.
Crafty, props, printing supplies, all together came out to $421.70.
Yes. And that was the actual amount of money that we spent on making the film.
Yes.
Which isn't that much.
That is really, really inexpensive.
Yes. And the thing is we went back and looked at all of the time that we spent and kind of equated that and then looked at the SAG-AFTRA budget, what that would have cost if we wanted a union stamp on the project. And it started to kind of make our eyes boggle a little bit.
Yeah.
But maybe we should talk about how we kept the actual crafty and prop budget so low.
Yeah, because there were a few things that we did to save a little bit of money. And then one thing we did that probably didn't save very much money. And we probably could have found a cheaper way to do that. But that's okay.
Yeah, because we're still talking about under $500.
Yeah, at the end of the day, that is an inexpensive film.
For sure, for sure.
So
I feel like the first thing that we did to make sure that we didn't have to pay a lot out of pocket was to film in this studio.
Yes.
And then in my house.
Yeah.
And that made it super cheap because we didn't have to pay a location rental.
Which is really nice. And keeping the shoot that simple meant that we could do it in 2 days, which anytime you're looking to really cut down production costs, cut the number of days that you're filming.
Yeah.
That's the number one way to make your film less expensive.
Yes, for sure. The second thing we did was everybody was dressed in realistic wardrobe.
Yeah. We kept everybody in...
I shouldn't say realistic because you always want your wardrobe to look realistic.
If you're, I guess if you're making like a fantasy kind of film, you know.
The film Murder Party, that one did look super realistic, but that was intentional.
Yes.
So, but we kept it as far as everybody was dressed as though they were hanging out in 2026 in a house.
Yes.
And that's everybody's wardrobe.
And that helped a lot. We decided to stick to a color palette as opposed to having the characters dress up as their little game pieces. For those of you who don't know, the entire story is set as sort of a D&D game among friends.
Yeah.
So they all have a character piece that represents them and who they are in the game, but instead of trying to find a way to make people dress up in these, fur suits or have giant swords or all these actual fantasy medieval style elements, we just leaned into the color palette. So if the character was pink and purple, that actor's wearing pink and purple. And that's a nice way to have a nod to it without having to break your bank. And it means you can go get your costumes from a thrift store.
Yes.
Which is the easiest way to do that. I don't know of a better way to do that other than asking friends or family to borrow clothes.
Yeah. So we just bought a couple shirts because a couple of the actors had everything already in the color scheme that we wanted.
Which was nice.
And we wanted to have the color scheme pop a little bit because we were filming our quote-unquote green screen / rotoscope scenes in the studio, which we've talked about before. It's basically black.
It's just a black wall.
And so we wanted people to have colors that would be reflective so it would be easier to pull them out in post.
Because at the time, the assumption was that the AI object masking tool in Adobe Premiere would work.
And it didn't work out very well. But we're going to go over that in the hours of work put in on the project as a whole. So we cut costs there.
Yes. That ended up being $34.83. And yes, after buying clothes at a thrift store, you do want to wash them before you have your actors wear them. That's
Please.
just common decency, especially
Please.
since we were not paying these actors.
No, they were volunteers,
Yes.
which was amazing. And you want to do everything that you can, including feed them.
Yes.
So we went to 2 different grocery stores
Yes.
to get food, which was cost effective because one had better produce, but was more expensive on like the chips and prepackaged goods.
Yeah.
And so then we went to another one to buy those materials.
And
we
buy
would
things more in bulk, too. They had
Yes.
better pricing on bulk items as well.
And we would have loved to support a local grocery store, but those don't really exist much anymore, at least not in the Treasure Valley in Idaho, Boise area. It's really hard to find a local grocer.
There used to be a couple, but I'm not sure there really are now. There are a couple little general stores and bodegas. Unfortunately, though, those would not have been cost effective for.
No, we're out in the burbs.
Oh yeah, we would have had to have driven 45 minutes to go get to one of those bodegas,
but we did support the local game shop to picking up our Dungeons and Dragons pieces or miniatures,
and the dice and the character sheets and things. So that was one thing that probably would have been cheaper to order online, but felt better to support a local game store.
Yeah, anytime that we can.
Yeah.
Not buy something on Amazon, we do our best.
Yeah.
Which is getting harder and harder.
It's getting a lot more difficult day by day.
And we went to a local print shop to get all the scripts printed off and get the shot list printed off, which actually ended up being cheaper than Kinko's / FedEx / Staples
/ your local big box printer.
Yeah.
It was actually a lot cheaper.
Yeah, I would say 50%.
Yeah,
of
because
the cost.
we printed off a couple copies of the script, a copy of the coverage map, and all the character sheets that we didn't buy, some of the customized looking character sheets for this homebrew D&D edition that were props, and then all of the waivers, which I guess we could have saved even more money by going digital for the waivers, but we didn't do that.
Well, it's always a crapshoot with Adobe PDFs and getting them back from people.
Yeah.
It's always so much easier to just have a piece of paper there for them to sign.
Have a clipboard and an AD and a pen and
I know
say,
that
here you go.
anytime somebody requests, what's that form, the W-2 for your business, and you go to download it, it's blocked when you try to open up Adobe PDFs and try to edit type in the new date and then put your signature in there. Like the date area is blocked off, and then you have to save it as a different type of PDF in order to type it in there.
You know what? Here's my
Drives me crazy.
Here's my cheap trick for that, or life hack for that, or what have you. It doesn't have to be brand new. Just get one copy from whatever the IRS website or whatever that sells it. Jesus, they will start selling it. Just wait. No, right now you can just download it for free. So just download it. Fill it out once, save it on your desktop, and anytime anybody ever asks you for one, you can just send them that.
Oh, I always feel weird of sending the wrong date, but I do have one saved where
it's only the year.
Well, I can write the name on there with my mouse, but it always looks weird because I'm trying to write actual numbers in there, and it reminds me of myself in first grade learning how to write numbers when I write it with the mouse. But,
digital writing is very humbling that way.
But anyway, so we ended up using the local printing press, local game shop to get paper copies as well as the props that we needed. Yes, which worked out well. And I think that covers all of it.
That was everything we bought.
$420 that we ended up spending on this film. Now,
and if you guessed that most of that was crafty, you were right.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, over half. The thing is we then were talking after we turned the project in. Obviously, it was
on time.
On time. We got it done in 28 days. A lot of nights with very little sleep. You were dreaming of pixels because you spent a lot of time in VFX.
I hear sleep is for the weak anyway. Do I sound manic? Maybe I still am. It's fine.
You'll catch up eventually. Yeah. I doubt the brain damage is permanent.
I don't think so.
The amount of time that we spent on this in post, we were thinking, we should break this down. And I reached out to my friend Mike Harris as well. He's a union musician that was generous enough to come in and record some clarinet tracks for the musical. And then he sent me the paperwork that I hadn't seen before about union musician rates. And I'm like, holy cow.
They are good. I'm glad that an artist, and there is a union for those artists that is saying, yes, your work is valuable. Because at the end of the day, artists' work is valuable.
For sure.
And just because we could do this for this low doesn't
Yeah,
mean you should all the time.
Not all the time. And so we want to talk about that because it wasn't cheap.
No.
We didn't pay a lot of money to get this film done, but it was not a cheap film. So anybody that's out there talking about the zero budget filmmaking, it really isn't ever.
No.
So first thing, the hours that we put in. How many hours did we spend on this entire project, Victoria? Every single person. How many people hours was it? Did it end up being?
Do I know this?
Do you want to take a guess?
Oh, thank God you know this. I don't. I'm like, I don't know every waking moment for the last 28 days. No. I don't. A lot.
Well, we're just talking.
It's got to be over 100 hours.
Oh, for sure. So
I would say maybe over 250.
Yes, it's 281 hours, and I'm just talking about production and post-production.
Oh, we're not even including the writing and the pre-production.
We're not even
and all
talking
that
about
jazz.
like this is assuming you have a script and you're ready to produce
Ready
it.
to go.
Because we didn't track any of that stuff. But
No.
once we started shooting, we had a schedule outlined.
Yeah.
But when you and I were doing the writing and I was coming up with music and you were coming up with lyrics and we were scheduling things initially.
Yeah.
Creating the schedule, I guess.
Yeah.
That just got completely lost.
Okay.
So
we can safely assume that was enough hours on top. So it was over 300 hours total.
Oh, for sure. Easily over 300 hours in the last month. And this is everybody's time, though, because we had 2 days on set where basically everybody attended. One day where everybody attended full day.
Yes.
And that was roughly about a 10-hour shoot day that day. And then we had the next day, everybody come back into the studio again where they spent anywhere from 2 to 4 hours in the studio to record their vocals and then also pantomime their 8-bit rotoscope scenes.
Yeah.
And so basically 2 days of filming for you and I, 1 full day of filming for a giant group of people.
Yeah.
So, and then outside of that, we had your VFX, which you estimated that you spent a day editing and then 64 hours.
Yeah.
With 8 days.
I would like to say that I felt pretty confident with the edit after about 5 hours.
Okay.
But there were probably a few more hours put into that, especially
Yeah.
like adding the credits and everything, because I'm not going to count the credits as the VFX work because
For sure.
it's just a Photoshop file. That feels
Yeah.
like editing to me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, then
so it
a
was
lot of After
nine
Effects
nine
hours.
full days of work there. And around here most of us are charging roughly about $50 an hour for our day rate if we're intermediary. So break that down. I reached out to my friend Jesse, who was generous enough to let, like, he and I worked one day in a studio, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 half days where we brought in other musicians to record.
And then he recorded his own vocals on top of that. He recorded extra versions of the songs on top of that for everyone. And he was kind enough to come in as the lead actor. I don't think we can really say thanks enough to Jesse for this.
It was really, everybody was super generous with all this when you break it all down. So there was that time. He also mixed and mastered the audio, the music.
Yeah.
I spent at least a day working on the sound effects as well, using his mix. And so all of that said and done, if we would have paid everybody just what they normally ask for and not SAG-AFTRA or union rates, we would have been looking at over $15,000.
$15,250.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the 281 hours. I should read. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. $15,250 was the actual cost of this.
Mm-hmm.
But we technically paid $421.70.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So
So we got it fast and good, not necessarily cheap. We just got really lucky on the price tag.
For sure. For sure. So, and I do want to talk more about, the value of volunteering on the podcast. But we also did a union rate estimate on this using the SAG-AFTRA sheets, and then using the musician union rates, as well as the directors.
The DGA and the PGA.
Yeah. And that pushed it up to, this is a rough estimate though, because there was a lot of complicated math on that. But $45,530 was what needed to have been spent to pay everybody a union rate to see those SAG-AFTRA tags.
which is
on there.
Nuts when I think of the last few festivals that we've been to.
Yes.
And how many of those films have that SAG-AFTRA logo at the end of the credits. Sure. And it just blows my mind that is a very high budget film. That is a high budget film.
And it's well outside of our realm of being able to raise those kinds of funds.
The union rate for this project is currently the amount that I am working as a producer on another feature film to try to raise to make an entire feature over a 2-week shoot.
Which we'll be doing with Skeleton Crew.
Yes, yeah.
And I do want to say, if we were to shoot a short film where it was you running camera, me doing sound, maybe one other crew member, and then 2 people having a conversation, which we've done a short film in that vein.
Yeah.
Both of us have many times over and over and over again. That would definitely be way less expensive.
It would be.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this, because of the fact that there was music involved and then union musicians, it hypothetically would blow up the cost.
It would.
Pretty
it
enormously.
Absolutely would. But I mean, it also adds leaning on the music is how we kind of got away with some of the other things being less expensive, right?
True.
We could have the costumes and the setting be a living room and an afternoon, or I guess evening, game session between friends, because the music is going to elevate this more than if we'd had a really fancy, like, Clue-style mansion where everyone's running around in the different rooms and actually doing all these things.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit of the trade-off in the budget, I think, too.
Yeah. And that was a hypothesis that we had, which you all can eventually be the judge of that, is if we come into a musical with good quality music that people have the potential to grab onto, then that will elevate the overall project without needing to worry about the visuals. But then at the same time, you spent a lot of time in VFX creating an 8-bit world for these characters to live in almost half of the movie. And so I feel like that elevates it on top of the music. It gives it a surrealistic realm of existence. So we'll see if that's true. But yes, we didn't end up having to pay for. I didn't have to bring out my location sound equipment.
No.
Oh, I forgot about Foley. I did Foley too.
You did do the Foley on that mixed day too.
Okay, well, that might have kicked it up slightly more. But I think the point is that if you're going to pay everybody what they're worth or what their commercial rate is for an artistic project, it adds up really quickly.
It does.
That kind of brings me to the cheap trick of the week, which is be friends with very talented people. No, it's kind of a
make better friends.
Yes, come on. No, we were talking about the value of sound effects and music.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cheap trick that we've learned to cover up some visual things with audio.
Yeah, because again, citing that study that is very difficult to find now instead of just people talking about the study, but there was. And we have a blog article on our website that links out to it from long, long ago. So we can get that link if you really need it.
Yeah.
You can just go look through our blog articles that we spend all this time working on. Just go through our blog. No, the idea that people will forgive mid-level visuals, but will not forgive mid-level or very low-level audio quality.
Yeah.
They will leave the theater if the movie is audibly bad.
Yes. And the film Sinners has a scene. Already it looks visually stunning.
It's beautiful.
Because it's a period piece. And there is a scene, though, where they're driving in a car and one of the characters is having a flashback. And rather than flashing back visually, which would have added a lot of time and expense to the film, they had the flashback represented auditorially.
Yeah, which
worked
beautiful
for the scene, and it ended up just being one long monologue with sound effects in the back, explaining, kind of like accentuating the story of the character, and it was a long shot.
It was a really long shot. They did cut away to a couple different little reaction shot moments of the other 2 people in the car, but those were shots they were getting already anyway because they needed to have the full car conversation, so that wasn't going to go above and beyond for them. But it was just it was a beautiful choice and a really smart, budget-friendly choice. I'm not saying that Sinners was worried about their budget.
For sure.
I don't think they were.
That might have been a creative choice in that realm anyway to add some uniqueness. But from an indie film perspective, that's a good way to cut down on costs.
Yeah.
In my mind, and even in this most recent film that we made, there was a scene where the devil disappears, where you had a crossfade, and we did a composite shot.
Yeah.
So he, dipped out of frame in one shot, and then we just left it open for the wide shot for the other characters' reactions, and then you made him disappear. But then when he reappears, he just pops out.
Yeah.
And so with sound effects, what I did is I had like a poof sound effect
when
he disappeared, and then I literally just reversed the same sound when he came back into the world. But psychologically, it made you ready for like, oh my gosh, he's coming back.
Yeah, this connected those dots as opposed to he just walks into frame where he suddenly wasn't before. And that was one other thing that I think, and this might just be my theater background, nerding out a little bit hard on some of this, but I think leaning into a lot of the practical effect stuff that we did, where we just had people off camera kind of sliding things in or having our actors strategically placed so they're in front of the camera kind of hiding other people as they enter so it can look a little bit more impressive when then suddenly they pull apart and there's more people magically behind them. Yeah. Little things like that, and getting the actors to kind of lean into that. The actor playing the devil, Nico, for that fadeaway scene where he just dissolves and disappears, we knew we were doing that composite shot. So we were shooting for that, but told the actor, have fun with it. This is the devil. How would the devil disappear? And since he was walking behind a couch, he was like leaning into the comedy of it and just flails and drops behind the couch. And you just watch him fall. And it almost made me sad to do the composite on it at all. Because I'm like, it's way funnier if he disappears by just dropping behind the couch.
For sure.
Like, that's the funnier moment. So we definitely kept it in there for sure. You had to. But leaning into kind of silly moments and letting the actors play. Once the actors understand the concept and you get to kind of chat with them, when you have talented actors on a set to feel free to explore and play, you're going to get those fun moments that maybe you didn't see coming. So I don't know if maybe in Sinners, maybe they didn't. Maybe they had planned to film all of that or already had filmed all of it. And while they were going through, maybe one of the actors said like, oh, I can almost hear like what you're saying just as you describe the story. And they were like, actually, let's do that and just lean in. I don't know if that's what happened, but I'm going to tell myself that's what happened because I think that's a fun story.
It's a creative choice for sure, but it could also be budget conscious.
It could have also been budget conscious, I guess.
Do you want to talk about volunteering? Because I think there's a certain morality around creating projects for quote unquote zero budget.
Yeah.
And we should probably address that.
Yeah. And actually, one of our now friends that we met at the Chicago Horror Film Festival, and we stay in touch online, and he makes a bunch of short films. He does incredible work. Robert Flowers.
Yes.
He had reached out to us about when we were talking about budgeting for short films and said that there's actually, he's gotten and heard from other filmmakers as well, a little bit of pushback on people sort of berating him for paying for shorts at all.
Oh, interesting.
And I cannot imagine a world where anybody is saying, why are you paying artists for doing their work? I don't get that. But I guess maybe the idea behind it is that you shouldn't be putting money into a short because they aren't necessarily lucrative.
Yeah.
On the reverse, like you're not necessarily going to see a great ROI from your short film, which gets into a much bigger discussion about what you plan to do with this film and are you using it to build an audience and can you leverage that audience? Because there was recently a film that did really well with a YouTube following and it was made by a YouTube creator. So don't knock it. You find your funds the way you can.
Yeah.
But I do think, again, artists' work is real work. If you can pay your artists for the work that they're doing, you should. Like, yes, you can get actors to volunteer. Yes, you can get your friends to do these things. But, man, it's also really nice when you can pay people and validate the, I guess, commercial sort of validity of their work.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes a lot of sense.
look, maybe we should talk about it instead of from the top-down perspective, because it's not like you and I are just producing things and trying to get people to collaborate with and make that our priority.
Yeah.
Because we both work in the community as well.
True.
We're obviously sharing about the projects that we've spearheaded.
Yeah.
But maybe you could talk about times when you've charged and when you volunteered for projects and how you draw the line in the sand there.
Yeah, that one's flexible, and it shouldn't be, right? Like, you should just always have your definitive line in the sand.
Yeah.
But I feel like it doesn't come down to it that easily. Like, for example, the competition we made this film for,
Yeah.
there were 2 other films that I worked on as well.
Mm-hmm.
I was choreographer and backup dancer in one, and stunt person in another.
Yeah.
And those I absolutely wasn't going to charge for, like, because this is not the type of project where you can.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited for the real footage because that'll be fun to have. And I was excited to spend a day on set with people that I just genuinely like. Plus, I never get to choreograph anything, and maybe I shouldn't. But I had a really good time doing it, so it's fine. And stunt work is always fun. So, you know, as long as there's enjoyment in it, I'm probably not going to charge. Anytime I'm on camera, I'm going to have a much harder time charging for work that my creative friends are doing.
Yeah.
But when I see a casting notice come through about a commercial for a product or something,
Yeah.
then I'm just automatically going to expect to be paid for that
Yes.
because it is a commercial thing. And I know that's not necessarily fair to look at it that way, but it's also, this is a company with a marketing budget looking to pay for marketing materials.
Yeah.
And as someone that worked in marketing for forever, I know that that budget exists, and I will not feel bad getting paid for it. So that way I also have money and time to do the other fun things.
For sure. Yeah. I
And
feel like
you can ask
commercial things are different than artistic things.
for sure. There's just
Initially, right?
Yeah.
If somebody's got a budget, if somebody's coming from out of town and they want to sell you on doing a commercial, even if it's a small business.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that there are instances if you're in a smaller town where it's probably a good idea if you want to learn how to run a camera or make a commercial. If you have a local restaurant or a local shop that's like, you know, they're willing to do some trade or they're willing to...
Trade is great for that.
Yeah.
Local businesses are great for trade because you can then get a restaurant or a crafty or location or what have you in exchange for more practice doing commercial work.
And if you need to build up your portfolio, it's going to be hard to just charge if you have a camera and zero experience. Sorry. You need to practice. You need to practice. So for me, I always charge for commercial stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes I'll be flexible with the budget depending on my actual number one concern, which is how much time I have.
Oh, that's really fair.
The time is huge for me because if I have things that I want to get done, my own creative projects, I don't want other projects encroaching on me unless I can't pay my bills.
Yeah.
So there's number one concern is time, if I have the time for something, and if I have enough money in my bank account.
Yeah.
Right? And none of us here that are doing freelance work are making money hand over fist, buying yachts and traveling around the world. We're just lucky if we get invited on a yacht to take some pictures and then we're working and not really enjoying it.
I would still enjoy it. I will still be available to do BTS photos on a yacht.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Yes, I guess. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong that I wouldn't enjoy doing videography
to all the
work.
yacht owners in Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if there are many of those.
So on creative projects, I think there's also a little bit of a if you're a really solid gaffer, you're a really solid DP, or you're really solid location sound recordist. This is just me assuming that somebody that wrote a script wants to direct it and bring on a talented crew to make it look and sound good.
Yeah.
That's a little bit trickier for me because if I were to take every single creative project that somebody came to me with and to do location sound, I would just be doing free location sound all the time. Unfortunately, that's the truth.
It is.
And the post sound, which that takes up an enormous amount of time as well. the post sound ends up taking a lot longer than the location sound in a lot of cases because you add sound effects and you get creative, which is cleaning up dialogue. If they have to use the take that was when the car was passing by or whatever, finding ways to mask that out. So yeah, to me, but if there's somebody that comes up to me with something where it's like, oh, okay, well, this is for another project, right? Are you willing to donate some time to help create a fundraising video, and then you'll be on for this larger project?
Yeah.
Well, let me look at the project. Oh, okay, cool. Looks good. Absolutely. If I have the weekend available, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because that's hopefully bigger projects coming into our community. And then also if there's just something really cool.
I know. If there's something exciting.
You never know, because everything's just a ticket, right?
Yeah.
And we learned.
What kind of ticket? Speeding ticket or lottery ticket?
Yeah, lottery ticket.
Okay.
Everything's a lottery ticket, not just speeding tickets. Although, yeah, we did both with your short film as we were driving down to Las Vegas.
Oh yeah, I guess
we did get a speeding ticket and the lottery ticket of whether or not Dive was going to get, I don't know, distribution or picked up by somebody or noticed or whatever.
You never know. Though I am proud to say I found out this morning that Dive did win Best Women in Film Short at the Austin Indie Film Fest.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. That was really exciting. I was hoping for getting some nominations for my actor. I like to be able to kind of give back a little bit when you can. So if you win awards and stuff, at least you could be like, look, see, now this is something for your resume. Really, even if you don't like the footage, at least it's still something for your resume.
Yeah. And I think that's
it.
Another volunteer situation as well, is if I do get in a case where there isn't a lot of location sound stuff, I don't want to get rusty either.
Yeah.
It's good to dust off the old boom mic and dust off the lavs before you point them in someone's face. But
yeah, I don't think you do a lot of audio stuff on a weekly basis or anything right now.
This is different than location sound. I'm going to tell you that right now.
That's why I don't do location sound.
Podcast processing is different than location sound. Different microphones. You can't put this at the end of a boom pole. You would just get garbage audio.
You could. I don't know if you'd be happy about it, but you could.
Just use the on-camera mic. No, I don't know if it would be that bad. But these need to be pretty close. But yeah, it's important to get involved in your community, because I did make a quote last week when I was talking about volunteering that I wanted to clarify. I think I made some notes on here. Because
you did, yeah.
Because it sounded like I was preaching like some sort of quid pro quo situation, and that was not my intention.
Which it can be.
Yeah. So one, I learned by volunteering because I didn't go to film school.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn how to do something, that's like the first step.
Yeah.
If you have a script and you want to direct something and you've never been to film school, definitely volunteer.
Always.
Learn a lot from the people around you.
On as many different types of sets as you can. Short films, features, music videos, commercial stuff, whatever you can. Get and see how every single type of set works.
Because then you can see people screw things up in real time so that you don't have to do that.
Well, I did go to film school mostly.
Yeah.
And I still learned so much more on all the sets that I've been on than, I mean, I learned a lot in school. I was very, very lucky that I had great teachers, but you learn so much more on a set.
For sure.
It's a crash course.
You go to school and they teach you how to read and write and do math, and then you're like, oh, wait, I don't know how to respond to corporate emails. So it's like, oh, no, you get a feeling for it. You don't actually need to say anything to this one. And if you email this one to this other person, then they'll sit on it for a week and you don't have to do anything.
Yeah, the little important things that you have to learn to navigate corporate America.
Yeah.
Don't email them. They'll email you back right away.
Yeah.
But send an important email at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and then you can be mad on Monday when it took you until Monday to get a response.
There it is.
It's good.
These are the skills. But yeah, so, I think it is good to volunteer on sets. And I will always volunteer on a creative set. That was another point. People that are creative want to do stuff that's new.
Yeah.
And if they truly love the work that they're doing, they're going to want to volunteer if you come up with a good idea.
That is true, too, is that you can start kind of building your community and the people who really get you and your vision and your style when you work with more and more people. And as you start kind of building a reputation for yourself, like if people know that you're doing the sound on something and they know that your brother, Bradley, who's been on the podcast several times and helped us immensely with this film too.
Yeah.
And they know he's, writer director on it. They're like, okay, that's 2 pieces of the pie right there that are really solid. The script's going to be good and the direction's going to be good. It's going to sound really good. And then when you throw in Danny as the DP, I mean, you all never have trouble getting talent to show up for your projects.
True.
Paid or unpaid.
Yeah.
Which is nice because you've built that reputation and you do also give back to your community and volunteer in your community whenever you can too.
Yeah.
So, it's a networking thing. That's what you do.
Yeah. And then you can just leverage that too. People owe you favors. No, I'm just kidding.
Call them all in all at once.
You owe me this many favors. Now I want to do my feature film for nothing.
It'll be great. I'm sure that won't cause any problems whatsoever.
Should we talk about our Filmmaker of the Week?
I think so. I'm really excited about our Filmmaker of the Week. Well, I'm always pretty excited about the Filmmaker of the Week. But this week we have Carlos Garcia. Did you want me to go through it or do you want to go through it?
Let me try it. See if I can read it this week. So Carlos says, honestly, I've been stuck in the I want to make short films, but never technically got going. So that was his mode that he was in. And then within the last 2 years, I finally kicked it into overdrive and made several, one of them being in Spanish. I'm really proud of that one because as a Mexican-American filmmaker, I want to tell stories that highlight my culture and my people. Telling a horror story set in the universe of 28 Days Later with a Spanish crew was my proudest achievement. I even have a behind the scenes on my channel showing the amazing crew that helped me bring that short film to life. I was impressed by him because he sent us a link to his YouTube channel and he is working it.
Yeah.
And you can see that he's creating shots that I think are unique and sound design stuff. And it looks like he's stretching himself, posting it on YouTube and learning as he's going. I kind of got that vibe just from the YouTube channel. So let us know, Carlos, if that's true. But it sounds like it was one of those things like, if you're stuck, you just gotta get out there and do it, and don't be afraid if it's not great because chances are nobody's gonna care anyway.
No, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
No,
never ever let the idea of perfection stop you from putting something together and just getting your work out there.
Absolutely,
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Plus, I love the idea of like more Mexican American filmmakers like kind of bringing that culture into their films and showcasing it because I mean. Especially for horror films, since he said it's like a 28 Days Later kind of thing. Especially for horror films, I think Spanish films tend to take the cake. On horror as a whole. There are a lot of good horror films that are not Spanish films, but man, Spanish horror, they go to a whole other edge of things, and it's good, and it's creepy, and it's good. So
cool. Anything else you'd like to add, or shall we succinctly say farewell?
I think we should just